IoT is a lot bigger than one architecture, one company, one OEM, one system vendor, and therein lies the biggest problem with IoT today. It's horribly fragmented. And IoT as it stands is just a buzzword. It's always existed. Devices have always spoken to other devices, well, in the last decade or two at least. But now what's happened is it's gotten a lot of attention because those devices have become from thousands to billions. And I'm going to talk about that too. But I thought I'd start out with a nice story because I found this literally about an hour ago before getting here, and so I'm gonna. It's a very quick one, but how many of you travel United? Quite a few. So United has this magazine in the pocket, and I usually, when everything else fails, like you can't turn on the video screen, or you usually pick up that magazine.
What video screen?
Yeah, that is true. I have been on a flight recently, transatlantic, that didn't have a video screen, and pardon me, but WTF comes up a lot in that flight. But there's a magazine there called Hemispheres, and I read an article in there. This was probably a couple months ago. I had to find it, and when I found it, I said, okay, this is perfect for my talk. The author is a writer from New York. His name is Paul Ford. So here, let me talk about this here. So in 1993, and I'm paraphrasing slightly just to speed it up. In 1993, scientists at Cambridge University in the UK, they trained a camera to look at a coffee pot, okay? And they created a live feed on the internet. This is 1993. Okay? This is just like at the fringe of NCSA Mosaic, okay? Internet had just come alive. If you went to yahoo.com, you saw 4 links. I remember that. I might look young, but I remember that. And the fun thing about it was you could bring up a browser on your wonderful 28.8 modem, and you could see the coffee percolating. And, it was wow. I mean, people were like, oh, wow, I can see coffee percolating. It was great. By 2002, people had connected up a robotic armature arm to an Etch-a-Sketch, okay? And people could control it now over the internet. So you could log in, and if you were the lucky one in the queue, you could actually control it and make some doodles on this Etch-a-Sketch. Wow, okay, that's a big change in 10 years. Today, the internet is connected in ways that those early guys, they had no clue that this could happen. I mean, it's just well beyond Etch-a-Sketches and looking at coffee pots. There's intelligent transportation systems, intelligent buildings, intelligent energy grids. And I'm going to give you examples of all of these. I mean, these are all terms that we hear a lot. I'm going to give you a lot of examples on this. And all of these can work on this web. What's interesting is a lot of these devices and things that are on the web actually have Twitter accounts too now. Okay? You can buy a coffee pot that will tweet you. Okay? I'm not joking. It's just imagine I'm building the case for what is about to happen.
That's not new. I mean, tea kettles have been tweeting for centuries.
That's true. Nice one. I'm going to have to use that. I'm going to see the CEO of Twitter on October 7th. I'm going to bring that up. That's pretty good. That's really good. So by 2015, so Cisco has this great paper on IoT. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's this paper that they wrote about 2 years ago on where IoT is going, how many billions of devices. They claimed there's a $13 trillion market, 25 billion devices. Anyway, if you look it up on the internet, great read. One of those things that someone throws a moonshot out there and people just keep referring to it. So I'm referring to it again, or Paul Ford is. 2015, 25 billion devices will be connected onto the internet. Well in excess of the world population. Hopefully. And if you look around, you see them. It's not just your computers and laptops and phones anymore. It's door locks. I've got an August door lock at home, which I can, the moment someone comes to my door, I'm sent a message. Somebody's there. All of these are available. And now you're getting into even more mundane things like your wallet and watches and things like that. They're all getting connected. In fact, the Japanese, pioneers in technology and innovation. Sometimes the innovation is questionable, like this one, but connected toilets, they are available. Okay, it's fine. People Want to deal with that?
Keep
let me,
it short.
yeah, exactly. Let me give you an example of a township in Southern Korea. Now, I did not know this. There's an international business district called Songdo that's being built up. Okay, at least $40 billion of development costs have gone into this place, and they built it up from scratch with an infrastructure of connectivity in mind. So you're not laying out wires afterwards. You've already laid out the wires ahead of time. And so things like monitoring people as they're walking down the street, so lampposts can come on and off, all there. Okay? So they're definitely building this. The city's houses and the stuff within them will be hooked up to the grid too. And kids will be asked or forced, I don't know, wear tracking bracelets. Okay? In the case of my son, I would force him. Now, what's interesting is this sort of already exists today. There's already devices that are talking to other devices, such as TV cameras, traffic signals, GPS devices, and we're getting very used to these devices communicating with us. It's no longer that if I get an email from David, or if I get a text from Simon, I'm getting used to my August door lock basically saying, hey, there's somebody at the door. Interesting. So this is something very, very different. In fact, there's a digital theorist by the name of Tom Coates. He's hooked his house up to Twitter. I had to read on to see this one. And so if you're interested, if you go to if you follow House of Coates, you'll see this. It starts tweeting at him. It's quite dark in the sitting room, so I'm going to turn on the light for you. So now, not only is it talking to you, it's trying to be intelligent.
He's trying to be your mother.
Don't read in the dark. Yeah, that's what it does sound like. So this type of stuff is definitely happening. What's interesting is the author says, and this is kind of a joke, but probably true, it's easy to imagine Coates' house twittering away for years after an apocalyptic event. That would be kind of scary, but it's true. What is also interesting is these devices are no longer just communicating, but they're generating a lot of data. That's where things start to get interesting, because the data has a way of getting to the internet, right? And there's an advantage to it, but there's a disadvantage to it. The advantage to the data getting to the internet is you can mix it with other sources and come up with something hopefully intelligent. The downside is, well, if it isn't secure, reliable, private, and trust me, I'm going to bring up Target here. I'm going to talk a lot about it. I studied how Target system was breached, and I'm going to say it. Hopefully none of you here are going to have Target folks run down on me and say, no, that's not true. But I'm going to definitely talk about that. As you generate more and more data, there will be more and more services on hand to feed your most intimate information to the cloud, indexing you and your things in the same way Google indexes the New York Times. So today you do a search, you get some text, it gives us some information, we're very happy. But now it's gotten to the point where within a year or two, I'm pretty sure, at least in my case, I'm pretty sure if somebody started Googling me, they'd know more about me than I know about myself. Okay? Could be scary. I think it sounds really scary. There is maybe an advantage to it. I mean, I wouldn't mind if it's very well targeted, and they know I love my, I don't know, skim milk based half cappuccino, and I'm walking by a Starbucks, and my wearable's like, this guy's probably getting a little tired, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Throw me $1 coupon and watch me turn 90 degrees inside Starbucks. I can buy that. That's not too bad. But it's the other 99% of what could happen with that data that I'm really scared about. So yes, we're definitely consumed and absorbed by the internet because we're learning a lot. The devices are learning a lot. In some sense, now the author says, we're basically becoming a cluster of servers ourselves. Okay? All pinging and chatting, producing and logging information. If it carries on like this, he says, before long, we will all amount to internet companies in ourselves. Because we're generating so much data, we have so much sensory information, and that data is valuable. So the last point I'll make on this is, and I'm going to read this one verbatim, not everyone, of course, is enamored by all of this. According to the trend watchers, more and more people are going off the grid. Ooh. Not only in terms of their physical location, like moving to a log cabin in Alaska, but in terms of limiting their exposure to the ever watchful eye of the internet. here's where it gets interesting. You can read about these people on the off-grid net. In fact, you can even track them and contact them via the site's interactive map. Go figure. You can't really get away from it. Anyways, I wanted to share this with you. If you wanted the source of the article, send it. Because I came up with it. I found it. I've refound it, I guess, recently. So I said, let me share it. Okay, so.
How do we contact you?
How do you contact me?
Yeah.
You'll see it at the end of this presentation. The slides will be shared. And feel free to contact me. I'm a bit slow on email, but I do get to it. All right, so this guy's scared. And he should be. Because recently, some of you might remember, actually I think it was December last year, the refrigerator was hacked, okay? And
Baby camera was also.
yeah, baby camera, that's probably a lot worse. The refrigerator, it was one of many appliances, but the refrigerator was sort of interesting because not only was it hacked, but it was hacked to send out spam messages. And so it started bogging down one of the ISPs, and the ISP noted this was a little strange. I don't know how they figured this out, but it's just bizarre. This, to me, is a good picture. Shocking. Okay.
Excuse me?
Yes?
What was the failure mode?
Oh, what was the failure mode?
Yeah, why was he scared?
Oh, I found this picture.
That's a very old picture. That predates all of this.
That probably has to do with some dorm food that he should have thrown out a long time ago. But, it's, I think the scary part is, the good side of something like this is, if done correctly, what can you save as a result? Well, if my milk is low and Google Express tends to deliver it before I've even found out, I think I could appreciate that. They're getting closer. I mean, Google even. There isn't a day that goes by that I come home and there's packets of Google Express that my wife has ordered, and she's ordering everything through Google Express now. They just need to take it to slightly more at a prediction level. And if the fridge was connected, this sounds like science fiction 10 years ago. It's not science fiction, right? It's practically there. I mean, Google Express. How many of you guys have used Google Express lately? Okay. Within hours, you can get whatever you want.
Yes.
It's absolutely nuts. And they're going to hook you onto it and then probably charge you oodles of money or want extra data from you. I have no idea yet. But all I know is that with that level of service, a little bit of prediction will get you this far. And maybe I'll be shocked. I'm vegetarian, and if I see meat in my fridge, that's what I will look like. So yes, attack of the refrigerators. Okay, so more connected homes and more problems. Smart refrigerators and TVs have been known to send out spam. That was reported on NBC News. And basically, if hackers can exploit a weakness in a single type of internet-connected home. Now, I mean, I'm not talking about just malicious code or latching onto some open port that they found that your router was advertising. Actually, in that area, some people have done really well. In the router space, you could go to Fry's, pick up a router, and these days they don't come pre-configured open. I don't know if you remember that, but a couple of years ago, you'd buy a router, default. That would be username and password. I had a lot of fun with that. At Qualcomm, my job was, I was building the Mac for 802.11b back in 2001 or 2002. And I got really interested in the Pringles can. Do you guys remember this? Okay. So now, San Diego cops had no idea what I was doing, obviously, so they confiscated my equipment when they realized I was about, 500 feet away from some store with a Pringles can outside my car window, and they confiscated all my equipment. They had no idea what I was doing, but those were the fun days. So, the problem is that incorrect perception can lead to bad planning. What do I mean by this? Okay, everybody wants to go down the path of integration, okay? The more you integrate, you can bring your device costs down, okay? Everybody's doing it, okay? People want to do data mining, which means you've got to bring sources closer together. If you keep them disparate in silos, they can't be brought together. And then 1 + 1 is not equal to 3. So people are doing all of this stuff. The footprint goes down. Costs go down as a result, and therefore these devices become really pervasive, and there's billions and billions out there. Everything so far so good. Everybody in the industry, in the semiconductor space, ODM space, everybody's doing this. Okay. Lower total cost of ownership as a result, added revenue. Very, very simple. Anybody, all of your bosses, if you're your own boss, you'll know this too. The word integration probably comes up at least once a day. On the other side, there's security and privacy. Who cares? Integrity of data. Who cares? Reliability of data. Who cares? Why should we do that? It's a higher cost. It's a waste of time. There's a battle. Okay? Classic battle. There's only one industry I've encountered, and that doesn't mean that there aren't others, it's just I've encountered, that actually does it the other way. And that has to do with the set-top box industry. The set-top box industry understands the value of content, and so security comes first, which is part of the reason why you pay so much for cable. Okay? It's downside to it. At the end of the day, you're paying for dollars per box, companies like NagaVision, NDS, Irdeto, for cast systems. But that industry understood the value of content and video and audio 100 years ago. And the business was built up from that. Most every other business I've seen in my field, in my view, doesn't quite see it this way. And mobile definitely doesn't see it this way. Mobile went the other direction and kept fighting the security guys. It's changing. All right, let's talk about Target. I thought this was kind of getting relevant again, so I wanted to find out, was it just as simple as, you know, somebody came in there and, I don't know, like you see on the movies, you know, they have these weird, like, magnetic card readers with parallel, colorful cables coming out to some little PDA. No, it was nothing like that. It's a lot better. They were hacked. Well, how? Okay, guess what? They compromised credentials from an HVAC vendor. That's how it started. Ooh, this is already getting interesting. So, HVAC, air conditioning, third-party vendor, supplies systems to Target. No problem, every company does this. The air conditioning unit in this building is not owned by this building. It's supplied by another company. Now, in order to manage those systems, there are machines. There are machines that are sitting on some network. Why? Well, that's where it gets interesting. The HVAC systems monitor temperature and changes to see how long customers stay. Okay? You've always known this. It's a great idea. You want to know, hey, all of a sudden the temperature has dropped in Target by 2 degrees, and this is supposed to be Black Friday. Somebody should get fired. Not bad. Quick, good feedback loop, right? Except the HVAC system was sitting on the same grid as the POS system, the point of sale. Why? Somebody was pretty darn lazy, and there's no regulation in place today. I forget the exact organization. I have it in my notes, and if you come to me later, I'll tell you what it is. There's no regulation that says that systems have to be segmented away from POS. None. So I'm pretty shocked to hear that. Okay, so these guys got in. They compromised something from HVAC, which was probably not as secure. They got in, started seeding around, probably changing UIDs around a little bit, and then they probably came to some directory that said POS. Well, it certainly is a POS system, that's for sure, pun intended. It was a unified backend systems at the store, and I hear this is true of most retailers. If I understand correctly, yesterday Home Depot got hacked, and the rumor is in the same way. We'll see. How many of you shop at Home Depot? Now you're not raising your hands.
From the whole room.
Not bad. So the POS system was breached. Millions of credit card numbers started flowing out into 3 independent data warehousing sites, encrypted from there back into Russia. Millions, a number, 110 million credit card numbers were compromised. The breach was detected. Here's the funny part, right? This is why Target came under fire. Target didn't come under fire that there was a breach. Everybody's breached. They came under fire because they didn't do anything about it. Why didn't they do anything about it? Well, manual intervention was required. Well, okay, well, what were you thinking? So what happened? $200 million of cost, the CEO was ousted. Probably, and I don't even want to guess the lawsuits that are involved. This type of stuff can bring any company to its knees.
No.
Okay, now I'm going to go back 1 second here, only because I brought this up. Higher cost, waste of time. Really? Okay, so I think Target probably learned the hard way, and Home Depot is probably about to find out. So let's see, how big of a problem is this? Well, graphs like this exist all over the place. World population is increasing. You thought that was staggering. Connected devices from 12 years ago have gone from 500 million to projected 50 billion if you believe Cisco. I do believe them. Connected devices per person, less than 10% to 700%. I'm way more than 6.58 in home, that's for sure. But we're Silicon Valley, so hey, we're setting the trend. Okay, at the enterprise and corporate level, according to the MPAA in 2010, sorry, I wish I had better data, but $10 billion was lost due to piracy. It's well known to some degree. Technology companies such as Qualcomm and Cisco, they lose hundreds of millions in revenue due to cloning. A lot of architectures, systems, software, or hardware are cloned. Corporate cloud usage is on the rise, definitely with mobile access. And I shouldn't say I haven't been a part of a company that implicates the company. But I haven't seen a good enterprise system that has figured out the BYOD problem, right? Bring your own device. Either the company gives you a device, which happens to be a smartphone, that allows you to still download apps to it. That doesn't really serve the purpose. Or you bring your own device in, and they're willing to provision it, and you're good to go. Funny thing is, my corporate laptop, I turn it on, and the disk is encrypted, and then you have this Windows password, and then VPN into the network. But my phone, which is not being monitored, has all my corporate email, which is probably, at least in my case, was a considerable amount of IP is sitting in my inbox.
Mm-hmm.
People need to figure that one out. At the personal level, mobile devices are definitely valuable, but they're not valuable because of the hardware. It's the big thing that's changed. Much more valuable because of the transaction and content capabilities. If you have a device and you lose it, why do you think Apple and Google, through the, what is it called, Android Sentinel, not Android Central, their portal that allows you to connect into the device, you can track your device if you really want to. I don't really care. But what I do care is that other button that says wipe clean device. If I lose my phone, that's by far the first thing I'm doing. I brought up mobile cloud storage is up. We need a way to bind the cloud to the device itself. And devices are easily rooted. Never, ever, ever assume that, oh, a new operating system has come out, a new phone has come out, it can never be rooted, the bootloader's locked. No. Been there, done that. All devices are rooted. In 2008, when I was at MediaFlow, which was a division of Qualcomm, ill-fated division eventually, but good technology, we were doing broadcast television to the phone over a proprietary OFDM network. It was part of the technology was partly acquired from Flareon, if you remember OFDMA from Flareon. Anyways, and I was running systems engineering, video systems engineering. And at the time, I was given a task. I said, well, okay, how does security really work on streaming video today? And Netflix was kind of there still, just started up, it was very popular. 2008, 2009 maybe. And I said, okay, fine, well, I'm going to try to hack this device. It was an iPad 1, I think. I'm going to try to hack this device, and I'm going to try to pull the video out. It took me about 2 weeks, but I was able to do it. Now, I never told Netflix this, partly because I wasn't able to pull up the whole thing, but I was able to pull out the first 10 minutes of anything that they had. And I later found out that it wasn't that I was a genius, I wasn't. The requirements on this particular type of resolution and bitrate for video, key roll needs to happen every 10 minutes. So. But what was interesting is that it's not too difficult. I didn't solder any wires in. All I did was probe memory, looking for, if any of you guys are video guys, you know the start code prefix of H.264, 00000001, okay? That's all I did. Search for that in memory, I found it, and boom, every single time, they didn't use a pseudo-random key to start the address of the H.264 elementary stream. They started at the same place every single time. So 10 minutes, boom, I could always get out. So devices don't trust them, okay? They're rooted. All right, so that was a little bit more mobile focused, and now I just told you that we've gone from a couple of devices to millions of devices to billions of mobile devices to tens of billions of devices. And the problem is not only still there, it's about to get a lot worse because of the number of devices. So yes, there's billions and billions of devices that have to deal with identity, authentication management, in-field updates, very, very important, because, well, people demand new features, okay? I'll give you another story about, right after this, I'll give you another story about my Tesla. That was actually a fun one. In-field updates for features, but also if a device is compromised or if a software is compromised, you're not going to tell somebody to throw away, well, throwing away a coffee pot's one thing, throwing away a car or bringing in a car en masse millions at a time to get software updated is just not a solution. Dynamic interactions, big data, real-time data management, etc. Sorry for the font size.
Do you know how long it takes to update a car?
You know, my car schedules itself to get updated at 3 a.m. I'm not awake at that time, so I don't know. But probably a while, unless the software is fairly modular. I mean, phone builds are a couple gigabytes too now, so I'm not too surprised. Multiple technologies and standards, this is a big problem. I spoke about the silos, and right now the silos exist in technology, connectivity. People are struggling with, okay, is the next IoT standard going to be out there a AH-based type of thing, or is it going to be a 15.4 based thing? We don't know yet. People are putting in both. But is it true that 15.4 will ever make it to the mobile device? I don't think so. That's a guess. AH, probably. So there's a lot of silos still there. Some people are more established than others. Some people are more emerging. Some people are competing. And standardization is key. And that's why I'm going to talk about my consortium in a moment here, but there's at least a half a dozen M2M IoT consortia out there. And very soon, and if Simon invites me back, I'll have an infographic that explains where all these fit. I think that'll be useful. Solutions are highly fragmented. Low power is obviously a requirement. This is actually getting better. I think part of it's topology, right? We have some, I dare not speak on their behalf, but we have some really highly technical people here from TSMC, okay? That has really driven things so you can pepper sensors around your yard and not have to worry about them because they're like 10 or 15 bucks in the last 2 years. Cost limitations, which we all know about, and long life cycles. This is, you know, a lot of the IoT stuff you're going to buy, if it's around your home, if it's around automation, if it's your car, which I think is the ultimate IoT showcase, but you're not going to throw it away at the cycles that you throw away a car or a phone. Yep, and then security. Of course, it's the biggest bullet in this whole mix. I'm not going to go through all the words here, but the part that's really relevant, if this has a laser pointer. Yeah, good. So, and I'm going to talk about this a lot more. Within Purple, I've got this whole data center to device concept. And the idea is that there's little data generated here, more data, big data, and then I define the whole huge data thing. But the point is that the topology is no longer that data is generated here and it flows, and then there's a lot of analysis sitting in some Facebook server or AWS EC2 or something. That's not quite the topology I envision. Argue with me if you want. You know, I might be wrong, but my theory is that there's going to be regions of processing capability across the entire stage. Some data is not going to make it all the way up here, and rightfully so. I mean, if I'm a mom and pop shop sitting in Palo Alto and I'm selling some Uber gizmos and I'm wanting to monitor traffic and inventory, traffic versus inventory, people coming in my store and buying stuff, I really don't need people to see that data, and so I'd rather not it be processed here, but I would love for it to be locally processed. Where that boundary lies, it's going to depend. It's going to vary across the whole spectrum. But there are requirements in the security space, and these slides will be available so you can read it, so I'm not going to go through the words, but anything that relates to platform security, root of trust, secure boot, secure update, secure debug, in-field updates, etc., that's pretty common. It's going to sit anywhere from sensors all the way to the cloud. Every single node in that entire spectrum will require that. And this, I think, needs to be somewhat unified in its approach so that you don't have too many silos. This actually does go all the way down to the architecture, and I'm going to talk about that. And then for each of the other nodes, there's some things that are a little bit more specific. In the networking space, you may have certain protocols, etc., that will be enabled that won't necessarily be enabled on the sensor side. I'll let you read this slide later. Whenever people are discussing IoT security aspects, you know, I mean, it must be embedded, okay? I've heard people, anybody here from Wind River? No? Okay. I have a lot of respect for that company, but I read a paper once, and they said, in the paper they said, of course Wind River says, security starts from the operating system. Well, I just told you, I can hack any operating systems. It's a little surprised to see that, but it's embedded, okay? It's got to start there. You have to know what's being protected. Security is an interesting one. Security doesn't mean that you create a Fort Knox around. Okay, Knox is not a good example. Samsung's using that word, but you don't create just multiple barriers to entry and exit. That's not the answer. You do that, then the cost of creating the security exceeds the cost of what you're the value that you're protecting. That's cardinal rule number one. Okay, you want to put enough security, but it cannot exceed the cost of what you're protecting. So be careful of that. Trust begins at home. I told you right at the beginning, platform level.
That's not true.
Oh, really? Good. Tell me.
Can't exceed the value of what you're protecting.
What did I say? Did I say something different?
Cost.
Sorry, value. I meant value. You're right. Platform security is the place to start. And if there are security experts here, bash me later if you want. But every security architecture I've seen that has worked well will have multiple levels of verification of the next stage. Okay, and I didn't understand that until I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, when we first had to build some content security architectures. But that's extremely important. You want to get to the point where you know you're jumping into a known address in code. You want to get to the point where you have access to memory that is definitely where you're accessing. You want to have keys that you can run hashes on to verify that this is in fact a real signature. And every step will allow you to validate the next step until your insecure part, which you don't need to protect because you've already assumed it's insecure. Like Android, for example. Okay, you want to get to the point where you've booted up everything, your hypervisors, everything, and before you launch into your insecure operating system or application. And then trust between the network elements. I mean, there's a lot of I/O elements in here too. And I'll give you one example of something I had to work on maybe a couple of years ago. When we were building up a security architecture for a mobile device, like any engineering problem, we thought, okay, sounds pretty simple, we'll probably do this. And then you start peeling the onion and you realize it's a little bit more complicated. In this case, what happened was we started peeling the onion and we realized, okay, well, so the person opens up a banking app, okay? And in the banking app, it asks you for your PIN to do a transaction. Well, you're about to type your PIN on a touch screen. Normally, that touch screen driver sits where? On an Android system. Okay. But now, if I'm in a banking app, and okay, the application knows, my touchscreen driver either has to be moved or duplicated into a trusted environment. In other words, the keypad has to be accessible also from the trusted environment. And the non-trusted environment can't have any visibility into it. And that was one example. So as we started to peel the onion, the problem is a lot more complicated. But you want to use the tools at the foundation level, like monitors, secure monitors in between, messaging in between, etc. So yeah, the principles are what I said earlier. You've got hardware roots of trust, secure storage, a secure asset store for your keys, secure boot, secure execution. The execution part's important because you may actually be doing some transaction there, and secure communication. So let me give you an example, and this I'm glad I can actually publicly talk about this now because Imagination and MIPS just launched this new MIPS i6400 core 2 days ago. I've been building up this story for a while, so publicly talking about it makes it feel so much more real. Yes, a secure boot process will start under ROM, something known. Well, now, can ROM be replaced? Okay, this is where the whole Cost of replacing exceeds the value of what you're trying to protect. Can a ROM chip be replaced? Yes, it can. Can eFuses be bypassed? Yes, it can. But for anybody in this business who's ever connected up charge pumps and seen how long it takes, not to mention how many you'll fry in the process, it's not that easy. So then you go down the path of how valuable is it and how difficult is it to hack.
But that's assuming that the hackers would be some casual off the street wacky person, right? I mean, what if the hackers team really come from an organization funded by some states? For example, United States.
Okay, I'm not going to say the three-letter acronym you're thinking about. Those cameras out there, they're all connected. Interesting saying that. Yes, there's, again, good and bad reason for probably that. And, you know, unfortunately, I think, you know, the world we live in sometimes necessitates it, but I don't have a good answer for that one. That's well beyond any pay grade I'll probably ever make in my life to understand that. So in the case of a MIPS core, and I'm a little biased obviously, but I believe that platform security, talking from all the way where we spoke about the problem, I'm now deep into some SoC design stuff, hinges upon virtualization. I actually very, very much believe in that. Now, it doesn't mean it's the only way, okay? I could be siloed. I could have all my systems separate. I could have my banking transactions on a separate CPU. I could have my enterprise on a separate CPU and memory and everything in I/O completely separate. But remember that other left glove, right? Integration, lower costs, getting it out there. I mean, that's what we do or you do, I should say, as engineers. You solve difficult problems under constraints. And so this is a constraint. We want to integrate. And so now the question is, can we create enough sufficient firewalls in between these and virtualize the system enough to get to that point? I think we can. At least I know that in my previous job, and Imagination is continuing this, thankfully, is building. And other companies are building it too. Virtualization is not a novel concept coming out of Imagination in the last year. A lot of people are doing it. And the question is, how deep inside the SoC structure can you go? Now, another example I'll give you is there's activities that AT&T is involved in at the carrier level in Domain 2.0 that are also specifying SoC architectures. AT&T, I'm not joking. They're looking at how to virtualize bus architectures all the way down inside the bus so that transactions coming in to the bus can be, using metadata tags, can be carefully routed to the right places in a complete CPU subsystem. Imagination is virtualizing the GPU structures too. Why? Well, video that's decoded tends to go right back into the GPU pipeline because there's things like overlays, rotations, etc. that the GPU needs to get involved in. And if it has access to raw pixel data, it's a breach. So this is the general diagram of what I try to show sometimes, and let me just do a quick 2-second explanation. This is what everybody knows and everybody sees. A bunch of apps that you can download from some store, like the Google Play Store. You have some non-secure HLS, high-level operating system like Android, and underneath sits a secure and protected hypervisor. This is the crux of it. You can call BS on me here, and I would hope you do, because this is what needs to be really, really protected. Beyond that, you could have multiple secure operating systems, and depending upon how the architecture is built, I think in the case of the MIPS i6400, it's 16. And I don't know why that limitation is there, but it's 16. And then you go further down into a fully virtualized N-core MIPS i6400. You don't care how many cores it is. It could be 1, it could be 5, 8, it doesn't really matter. And then through the hypervisor and a security policy that sits possibly in a separate virtualized container, you could do affinity. And that leaves things nice and fluid and flexible. Why? Well, I mean, the security core is not a dinky core anymore. You could do a considerable amount of stuff. In fact, I would almost argue there was an architecture, I want to say, I'm not sure if it was the OMAP 5 or the OMAP 4, where they didn't have enough time to virtualize the video decode units and they duplicated them. And what they found is, it must have been the 4, because I don't think the OMAP 5 ever made it out there. what they found out was that it was just easier to send all video data traffic through the secure core. Guess what? It was a single core A9, Cortex A9. It wasn't going to handle a lot of the stuff that they were trying to do from a DRM standpoint. So, anyways, that's just a quick example. Virtualization will allow you to do some little bit more flexibility and say, I'm going to give a couple more cores to the security side. So it's flexible, scalable, hopefully reliable, and you can keep your performance high because of the elasticity. I'll kind of go through this. You could have multiple CPUs, a secure hypervisor, and Android, and then multiple apps like Netflix, Visa, and Widevine. Time to market's really, really good on this because each one of those apps thinks it owns the whole system. Everything else is virtualized. That's the nice thing about virtualization, is if you believe in it, then the application developer doesn't have to worry about what could happen. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. What could happen is Widevine could crash. Okay, no Google guys here, right? They'll just tell me Widevine never crashes. It could crash. And the secure hypervisor or the secure policy manager would say, all right, let's reboot that thing, and it would get it back up online. Okay? None of the rest of the system has no idea, or it might have an idea, but it won't be affected. On the other hand, you could have a system where Widevine goes down and it could compromise the entire secure subsystem. And this does happen. It happens a lot more than you think. You can be a lot more power efficient, a lot more powerful and efficient. Android could occupy all cores. There's a bit of a core war going on right now, if you haven't noticed. Core, octa-core. I'm waiting for the next one. But that's going on. The problem, if you've got virtualization, you can scale on the yellow dotted lines a little hard to see, but this thing here goes across 2 cores. You can scale nicely. Current architectures, no problem on the Android side, but if only one core is set up as a security core, you have a bit of a problem because now these can't scale. So virtualization, and like I said, I'm not trying to point a finger at one architecture or another. What I'm trying to say is that everybody's doing it. Intel's doing it, ARM is doing it, MIPS is doing it. And there's probably a good reason why all 3 have now latched onto this. So everybody's already heading towards a bit more of a homogeneous solution to this problem. And global platform, this is kind of interesting. Outside of the politics that happen in global platform, which is a organization that, have you guys heard of global platform? Okay. So it started out as Visa Open Platform, okay? They were more on the payment side, they were on the smart card side, the old Gen Plus, Gemalto, they were all members there. And so there's a little bit of politics going on as mobile has come in and they're saying, well, you don't need to carry around 10 smart cards. Smart card industry is saying, well, you don't have to. We can put all of your credentials of all 10 services on one smart card. So there's a little bit of fighting going on between trusted execution environments and secure execution environments. But global platform is now considering certifiable containers. What does that mean? It means that if you've got a Netflix container and you want a device shipped out into the market, instead of taking this through TL, Trusted Labs, for 9 to 12 months, you probably know this, you can do some degree of pre-certification. This is big for TCO, and therefore lower cost, integration succeeds, yet that other side of the glove is secure and works. And this architecture, in the robustness requirements that at least Netflix provides, not Visa, I cheated here, okay? Let me be very clear. Visa payments today require at least EAL 5 level certification, okay? And virtualization is not considered an EAL 5 today. That's cheating for me to say that. But Netflix/studio requirements is completely fine with virtualization as a method of protection, assuming you can protect the hypervisor. I'll let you look at this diagram. I put this together on a flight, and I realized I show it every time, and I never explain it, and I'm not going to do it again. But I kind of like the diagram, so if you want to use it and reuse it, please feel free to. But it brings a lot of this stuff together that I just spoke about. Okay, how is IoT used in our daily lives? I'm kind of going back to a little bit of marketing, because I saw this example again. I'll let you read that later, but just, start with this. Sleep is precious. Surprisingly, I can't claim I have one, but I do. I monitor my sleep now because I have one of those fancy Fitbit things. And I don't, you know, I should be running more, I should be playing tennis more, I don't. But what I use it for is how well am I sleeping? Oh, it's fabulous. Any of you are wearing a Fitbit or a, okay, get it just for that. It's really interesting. You go to sleep, you wake up, you check your smartphone the next day, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no wonder I'm tired. Because it'll tell you your active sleep and your sort of like bad sleep periods and when it happened. It seems to me if my kids end up in my bed at night, my sleep just goes to the toilet. But if they don't come in bed, my sleep goes really well. It's just interesting data. Sleep is precious. And here's an example of where IoT is getting to. There's an alarm clock coming out next week that's going to actually do this. The alarm defaults to 8 a.m. Probably 6 a.m., but okay, 8 a.m. And it turns out that while you were sleeping, some bozo just couldn't get his stuff ready in time, and 45 minutes there's a meeting delay. It realizes that when you get into work, you need gas because your car just told the big cloud of things that this clock is accessing that you need to get gas. It takes about 5 minutes to get gas. There was an accident on the freeway during the time you normally head out, which is going to cause another 15-minute delay. And then you park somewhere and you have to take a train, and the train's 20 minutes late. You get an extra 5 minutes, and it moves the clock to 8:05. That's kind of cool, because it's kind of done some of this stuff for you. Now, this example that's listed here goes a little bit further. It uses this information and tells your coffee maker to turn on 5 minutes later, too. Because, I don't know about you, but I like my coffee hot. I do not like it cold. So, nice. I can see that. And then some ice melting on your car to start 5 minutes later. That's fine. My Tesla example, that's right. I'm an early adopter, and number 99, actually. And good and bad things about being an early adopter. We'll get into that. One of the seemingly bad things turned out to be good things is when I first got my Model S, about a month after that, I got some strange, and I used to work on cars, so I think I know a little bit about them. The Model S is just something else. I have no idea how this thing really works. And I got a message on my screen as I was driving. 12-volt battery system needs maintenance. Please contact service. I'm like, okay, I know what a 12-volt battery does. In this car, I have no idea what it does. And should I pull over? So I'm like, I can't really pull over. I'm on the 101. I keep driving. About 7 minutes later, I get a call from Tesla. It says, we noticed on your dashboard that, you're having an error, you're having a warning. And if you could do a favor for me, when next time you park and charge at 5 amps, we'll pull the logs and we'll let you know what's going on. And in the meantime, could you hold up the top 2 buttons on the steering wheel for me, please? Which I did. I saw a flash. 5 minutes later or so, he said, got it, I have a screenshot, we'll take a look into it. Wow. So I did everything he said. I parked, I charged at 5 amps. A couple hours later, I get a note back saying, we found a bug in the system, we've updated the software, you're good to go. I didn't have to take my car in. It fixed itself, at least to me. And this is part of the reason why Tesla's doing really well. They don't have as many cars as you would think going back into the shop. And if they do go back into the shop, and mine has, therefore, annoyances that you could say I'm being picky. For example, the car is quiet. Some of you have probably sat in this car, right? It's ridiculously quiet. I'm not talking about half a decibel quiet. I'm talking at least 2-3 dB quiet. Okay? Very, very cool. But what that means is, like underneath the armrests on all 4 windows, I have ambient LED lighting. Now, if you know this, LED lighting is controlled by some type of a PWM. Okay? Well, that PWM, because of, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's poorly designed, I don't know, buzzes. And while driving, I can hear the PWM on my LEDs underneath my doors, ambient light buzzing. And so I bring it up. So that's the kind of stuff I've hit. But they've replaced it. They're very good about that. But my point is, that was the IoT example in daily life. Is now, let's think about that for a moment. What have I given up in this process? Well, intrusion a little bit. He called me. He told me he can see what's going on in my car. He knows my position. He's pulling the logs. If I'm going someplace I shouldn't be going, and that data is shared on the internet, and okay. I mean, I haven't seen Tesla got hacked yet, but maybe that day's coming. So where is that boundary? Okay, and it occurred to me, and I didn't say this, but were any of you at IoT World event in Palo Alto about 2 months ago? Okay, so in Palo Alto, it was a lot larger than I thought. There were about 1,100 people there, and the concept of security and IoT came up again. And I almost brought up the question to one of the panelists. I said, is privacy overrated? I didn't, because I probably would have been yelled at. But in some sense, it is, under one circumstance. If the data we're getting back, if the structured data we're getting back is so valuable, we're okay to give up some levels of privacy. Okay? I'm assuming most of you or all of you have a smartphone. Okay? My guess is it's probably 70% Android, 30% Apple. It's a good statistic here. Most of those devices are radiating your position even right now. When you're driving, it's using that data to track traffic patterns. Well, why don't we care about that? It knows where we are. It could get hacked. Somebody could confront us if it got hacked. It's a personal security risk. But what we're getting out of that is real-time traffic data. A lot of you got stuck in traffic today, right? Okay. I was coming from Los Altos, and it took me 41 minutes to get here from Los Altos. And I had to do some weird middle field to central. Anyways, and I opened up Waze the app, which is, it builds upon Google, and then it uses crowdsourcing data of people around to say, okay, things have slowed down. This is very, very cool. But it got me here. It got me here in exactly 41 minutes. And that was a goldmine for me because I didn't want to be late and be yelled at by anybody. But that was a privacy item I was willing to give up. And I have a feeling a lot more of that's about to happen based on only one other fact. Do you remember processor ID that Intel started in 2001? Do you realize how much of an uproar that was? They were embedding unique IDs inside processors, and oh my God, the internet wasn't even, well, it was there, but it wasn't as pervasive as it is today. And then they had to abandon it.
And all the machines had.
Mac IDs.
Yes.
Exactly. It already existed. And that's what Intel actually said. But they had to pull it. Those days are long gone. Your phone is radiating like crazy. If you think that was scary. So just you look at the trend. It's pretty clear that these hacks are going to increase. The privacy issues are going to, have question marks on them. But the hope is that the data that starts to come back exceeds a value that gets us past the privacy hump. Yes?
Don't you think it's largely because the great unwashed just doesn't realize what's going on?
Okay, that's a fair point. I would at least say half, if not more. I agree with
Oh,
you.
80%.
Anybody who goes in, buys a smartphone, is buying it for the convenience, not knowing that all of this is going on.
Well, it's not a smartphone. A cell phone. Every cell phone, when it's on, is being tracked by the cell tower system.
Yes.
But 99% of the people in the world don't realize.
They don't fathom it. But what I'm trying to say is, even if they did realize it, they wouldn't change their habits. I think it's gotten to the point now, and especially, I mean, I have a sister-in-law who's at Columbia. She's 14 years younger than I am. There's a generation gap between us. I mean, the stuff that she's willing to do online. I mean, it's a beautiful girl. I love her. She's great. I was just there settling her down for her second year. But I mean, they don't do email anymore. They're doing all this Foursquare check-in when they go into a restaurant. I'm like, what are you doing? You're telling the whole world you're in this restaurant. Why would you do that? I mean, and I made it that obvious to her. There's such a dramatic trend shift that's happened in the last 5 years that I can only see the trajectory of where this is going. All I want to make sure is that the systems are there and exist to allow for this innovation to continue down that path, but be secure. Sorry, your question.
So the example you gave earlier about the Tesla case.
Yeah.
Actually, the value. Well, so you gave up some of your privacy, blah blah blah, right?
Sure.
But the value is all accrued on the side of Tesla, because
True.
the problem, the failure mode was that there was a false diagnostics. It was a false alarm. The diagnostics raised a flag unnecessarily.
They said they did a software update, but
And so obviously these things, nowadays these things is a combination of hardware and software glitches, obviously. So there was a bug in the software that caused that, and courtesy of the test case from you, they found the bug.
yes,
Or at least isolated it.
crowdsourced.
To the point where they can send you a fix.
Yes. No, in that case, the value was very high. The value was actually
Or to them.
No, that's
not
not true,
all.
yeah.
He didn't have to go in to get it fixed.
No.
More than that.
But you could have just ignored it and keep on going. You didn't have to do anything by it.
They
Yeah, that's
probably.
not I mean, his car will not go haywire and crash.
Yeah,
It depends on the situation.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't know what that 12-volt battery system warning was. The way I look at it, though, is it was a very big win-win because of the whole IoT system that was built up there. It may be siloed only for Tesla. It may be duplicated for GM and maybe duplicated for somebody else. And I would hope that somebody like Bosch says, wow, well, we can make a lot of money here if we just enable everybody.
Trust me, they're saying.
Oh, are they? Are you at Bosch?
I'm consulting for them.
Oh, cool. That's very good.
But related to that other example of any cell phone, the
Yes.
cell towers kind of can triangulate and figure out approximately where you are.
Yes.
Yes.
They know that information just to give you a better service anyway,
Yes.
right? So
Not a better service, any service at all.
yes, they rely on that information to give you service. So that's win-win, you say. But that information gets is somewhere and available to whoever that knows how to access it.
True, but my point is that there's these things aren't going to stop. They're going to increase, right?
Yes.
And if they're going to increase, and the data requirements increase as a result of that, the data needs to be protected, and the integrity has to be maintained. My position had better not be your position. Your position had better not be my position. Obfuscated enough, virtualized enough so that if you are compromised or your data is compromised, it doesn't implicitly compromise me. And what I'm trying to say is, in this entire thing, is the beginnings of that go deep inside the architecture of any device. There's no way to handle this at completely the software layer. The underpinnings of every architecture, every electronic device that's ever built, it has to start deep there. And it's not a difficult problem to solve. It's a collective problem to solve. In fact, and this is where I'm going to lead into this, because I'm going a lot further than I thought. I'm going to lead into what is purple, and I'll try to blast through this. So yes, imagination incubated and created a foundation, and it was an idea I'd been brewing myself personally for multiple years. I'm very glad that I was able to take it to fruition inside Imagination. A lot of members came together. Qualcomm, Broadcom, Cavium, Imagination, Iconos, Lantique, Nivalis Networks, PMC.
No imagination.
No, Imagination, sir.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
And but they didn't come in because they wanted to compete. They came in because they realized something. They realized that they were all doing the exact same work in a different way. And what they were doing had nothing to do with their core strength. In other words, they were wasting resources.
Well, they did want to compete, they just didn't want to compete in this area.
Exactly. In this area, they didn't want to compete. And so the way I sold it to them was simple. There's core competency and there's enablement. We'll do the enablement. And, it can take Qualcomm a long time to go through. You can imagine they're a very legal company. I know they are. It was 12 years. it didn't take more than 72 hours for me to get them signed, based on that concept alone. And the other guys saw it exactly the same way. So it's a modest community. Yes?
What imagination is interested in computers?
The original intent, and actually the continuing intent, is Imagination bought MIPS about a year and a half ago. And MIPS as an architecture 20 years ago was a glorious architecture. It still is, but it had its peak maybe 10, 20 years ago. 64-bit computing happened back in 1992 for MIPS, for example. And so when Imagination picked it up, they realized that the problem that they were trying to solve of the ecosystem around MIPS was going to be too complicated for any one company to solve. In due course of that, though, it was pretty much realized that Imagination, ARM, Intel, and a whole slew of other companies aren't going to all own the entire IoT ecosystem. Crosstalk is going to be required. Cross-communication is going to be required. Now, I mean, publicly, Imagination or ARM or Intel might come in and say, we're going to own everything. Okay, let's be realistic. I mean, even behind closed doors, nobody's going to believe that. Everybody has slightly different requirements. Is it reasonable to say that Intel is going to take 50% market share away from ARM and mobile? I don't think so. Is it reasonable to say that MIPS is going to take away, I don't know, some degree of percentage from mobile from ARM? No, I don't think so. And vice versa. PC computing, is ARM really going to take that away? Or is data center, is ARM really going to take that away? I don't think so. So there is a mix and match that was anticipated. So when Imagination realized that the mix and match is going to be required, they had to elevate the MIPS architecture. They said the best way to do this is probably through a consortium of some kind. Why open source? I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So I'll save that for a minute because I really believe in that. But then what we did is we went one step further because we knew we had to talk to a lot of people and focus on the enablement before the core competency. We decided that it would be an open source community definitely supporting the MIPS architecture, but it is open to all. And I'll be honest, Qualcomm, what did they do with MIPS? Well, Atheros is all MIPS today. Okay, they acquired Atheros 3 years ago, I think. No, more than that. 3.5 years ago, I think. These guys are PMC through IDT has some Tensilica stuff now. Cavium and Broadcom have both. And what they've realized is that if they're going to build secure hypervisors for virtualization to do everything I just spoke about, does it really matter? No, it doesn't. So for Imagination, it's a big move to be at the same table with the MIPS architecture amongst the big boys. I fully admit that. I think it's a good move. For everybody else, it's enabling. So that's why they're doing it. But I'll bring up the open source one in a moment.
But why only MIPS?
That's what I'm trying to say. The focus is definitely MIPS from an Imagination standpoint and why the consortium was founded, but it's open to everybody.
So the instruction set should not be
very good. Okay, so I gave another talk somewhere where I said the architecture matters, but the ISA does not.
Exactly.
Okay, good, excellent. So one of the things that I bring up here, and I'll talk about it in a minute, is virtualization is one of the key tenets of Purple. Portability is the other. MIPS came along for the ride because it was incubated by Imagination, and it's a very strong focus for Purple. Very strong focus.
That's a starting point.
As a starting point. But if Imagination's competitors came in, or I'm forgetting even competitors, I just told you, Broadcom, Cavium, and Qualcomm are all doing things in competing architectures.
Exactly.
I don't mind. There's only one thing I ask for, that whatever they do and submit is portable. Because I'm trying to break the silos in IoT. That's the only thing. It doesn't mean that Qualcomm can't differentiate. Go ahead, differentiate. Qualcomm Atheros has a technology called Speed Boost. I'm totally fine with that. Just ensure it's portable. That's it.
You're doing the enablement.
I'm doing the enablement.
You don't do the product.
I'm doing the non-sexy stuff.
Oh,
Okay.
no. The fundamental thing.
Yeah, fundamentals.
So ARM is not
In Purple?
well.
I mean, I would love it. I think if ARM and Intel actually joined this, I would say that 50% of my dream is probably going to come true, right? The problem is that consortia can get motivated politically, right? I'll give you an example. All-Scene Alliance that Qualcomm incubated is looked at as a very Qualcomm-centric consortium. And so Intel's like, we're not going to join All-Scene. So they created IIC, right? Intel
Industrial Internet.
Consortium, right? And then there was a bit of a spat between Rob Chandok over at All-Scene and I forget the guy, Brian, anyways, over at Intel. It takes time. I think consortia are one of those things that they're a virtual company of a lot of different people, and usually the people involved at the engineering level in those communities, they are willing to go past all the political stuff. There's no consortium, at least to my knowledge, where Broadcom and Qualcomm, other than Purple, where Broadcom and Qualcomm are sitting right across the table talking to each other. And I have that in Purple. Because they're all worried about enablement of secure hypervisors, regardless of architecture. Now, I'm going to keep pushing them on the MIPS path, but that's a political move. Other than that, we have to make sure that every piece of software that's done there is portable. That's very, very critical. Now, why open source? I don't think that the big data revolution is going to happen quite the way people think it is. IoT is going to happen. Big data is already out there, but it's siloed. The crosstalk isn't going to happen securely or at all unless there's enough collaborative minds in this. There's one caveat. I think if a Cisco or a GE, John Deere, those type of companies came together and they did it, there's a consortium like that, there may be a little bit, enough critical mass at that system level that would really push AT&T's and then consortium too. I feel fragmentation will slow things down. Open source can really alleviate the pain on that. The other angle is on security, and this is 50-50. More eyeballs, I feel, can lead to more security. And generally, this is popular belief in engineering communities too. If you are willing to go open source with secure code, it means that if there's an exposure, it'll be detected quicker, and like I gave in my target example, the quicker you detect things, the cheaper it is to fix.
But if it's open source, everybody can see the crooks can actually understand it better.
Absolutely, and they'll try to hack it.
Yeah.
Let them,
Yeah,
because somebody will fix it faster.
exactly.
So, you're right, if the fundamental belief is hackers will always hack anything, then you're right. There's a lot of iteration that's going to go through this, but that iteration cycle is going to be so fast because it's open, as opposed to, I don't know how the target POS system is probably reviewed by 2 people. I can't believe that actually happened.
The fundamental element is whether or not security by obscurity is a viable technique.
Or still viable. I mean, that's a last millennium
Yeah.
concept.
So, I believe in synergies heavily. IoT will drive big data. That's probably easy to understand that one. Big data will drive analytics because, hey, look, we're not all Facebook here, okay? Facebook is adding 10 petabytes of storage a day, a month, or it's not a day. I think every month they're adding 10 petabytes of storage. So the analytics are important, moving from unstructured to structured data. And those analytics will improve processes for that feedback loop. That's basically the whole innovation cycle that we're trying to push in Purple. I have this concept of Internet of Cow. I want to say I invented this. If anybody challenges me, I'd be very happy because I feel like I've invented this, but anyway, they call it the Internet of Cow. Why? Well, there's 1.5 billion cows in the world today, and believe it or not, they're all generating about 200 megabytes per year of data.
Yeah.
Why? Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but 10% of cattle is lost a year.
Cows don't know how to come home.
No, they don't. they don't know how to knock on the doctor's door. And they're lost because they're monitored, but they're monitored every 6 months. Now, I'm a big agri fan. I love agriculture. For the first time in my life with IoT, I feel like there's a way in society I can give back. When I came up with the Internet of Cow, I said, oh, I got to drop semiconductors and I got to go here.
But you're a vegetarian.
Helping the animals.
Doesn't mean I don't want to solve world hunger. I'm a vegetarian, but I'm not a religious vegetarian.
That's a noble thought.
200 megabytes a year, that's 300,000 gigabytes or 0.3 petabytes per year. It's not much, but actually it isn't much. It sounds like a lot. It's not much. If you want to hear the real story, and I think I removed that slide just, oh no, I kept it here, okay. GE turbines. This is a fun one.
Exactly.
12,000 turbines, 500 gigabytes a day per turbine. 6 million gigabytes or 6 petabytes per day is generated. You know,
That's unreduced, right?
this is unreduced.
Yeah.
This is unreduced. I mean,
Who cares?
well, so the point is, I'm waiting for somebody to do another SETI at home project from like 15 years ago. Maybe they're doing it, I hope they are. Because the processing requirements for something like this is just staggering.
Yes. That's why Intel is still in business.
Yeah,
Will continue
absolutely.
to be.
Yeah.
But
So-
the previous example you
Yeah.
gave about the jet engine, it's amazing that the Malaysian plane that got lost,
Yeah.
it took them months before they could unravel from, they eventually found the data from their jet engine. It took them months to find it.
No, that's a political reason.
Huh?
That's a political problem.
Practical
not-
problem, yeah.
No, not political problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's
But,
not engineering problem.
You know,
but in the beginning, they didn't know where to look.
No, that's a political
Oh, yeah,
problem.
that's true. Or management problem.
I'm being reminded on time, and maybe I'm having a little too much fun. But okay, so we know that data requirements are going to increase, and you know, we were talking about security requirements that are going to be required for this. Big data is no longer big; it's turning into huge, and I'm going to maintain that term until somebody supersedes me with something really, really big beyond huge. Lots of diverse devices in IoT. We've heard them all. We've seen them all. We're in Silicon Valley. They're all over the place. And because of that, there's some enablers for it. I brought up processing power, the networking infrastructure and connectivity needs to exist, low storage secure devices storage, loads and loads of secure portable software, and that is exactly what Purple is working on. I'm not working on anything else here. Okay? I'm very, very focused. I'm working on loads and loads of secure portable software to enable the entire data chain from data center to device. That's it. Okay? That's still a lot of work. But that's exactly what Purple is trying to do. I'm going to try to solve the fragmentation problem. I'm not going to jump into connectivity, but we're going to bridge the APIs required so that devices can talk and connect. It doesn't mean we're going to do it. We could partner with organizations like Allsyn or Thread. Totally fine with that. Operating systems, same thing. I'll give you an example. I'm a big believer of OpenWRT. Any OpenWRT fans here? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, come to me later and I'll tell you about it. OpenWRT is an operating system for routers that I'm going to try to have Purple focus on becoming the operating system of choice for the internet, the IoT hub. And unfortunately, it's very deficient when it comes to security models. We're doing a big push at the Embedded Linux conference in Düsseldorf in October, getting the maintainers involved. If you look it up, OpenWRT has been around for about 15 years, ships 85 million devices a year. Bet you didn't know that. We can talk more about that. I want to bridge some of the abstractions on the APIs today, just to make sure that those devices can talk. And multi-tenant is just another word for, hey, I'm going to enable virtualization. That's our mission statement. You can read it, but since I really liked when you brought it up, portable software virtualization architectures is the two main key tenets of what I'm trying to do within Purple. MIPS is a great processor to think about it because from a portability standpoint, 32-bit processors that were designed and implemented using the MIPS 32R1 release 1 to release 6 architecture, all the way to MIPS 64, which was released just 2 days ago. Oh, sorry. MIPS 64 core, but MIPS 64 ISA was actually developed about 20 years ago, is all code compatible. Whatever I write here will work on here because the 32-bit ISA was a subset of 64. So as an example, the MIPS architecture was designed for portability from day one. It's a very, very, very nice feature. People talk about Android working on ARM on 64-bit. It was destined to run on MIPS from day one because no porting is required. The key domains that Purple is focusing on, and you can split this into 3, 4, 5, or 6. I like to go data center to device. There's some data center stuff we're going to be doing, Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS. We've already begun work in Fedora. CentOS, we're just in the position of upstreaming OpenWRT. If you guys are interested. Cavium is keen on bringing in Monta Vista back in the open. Digital Home and Mobile, again, OpenWRT for the hub. Linux and Android enablement. We believe that Android's going to go a lot further, and Google's proving it to now. They're taking it well beyond the phone, their mobile, TV, etc. We're hearing. Embedded in IoT, we're quite active in Buildroot and RTOSs and emulation environments. So one of the things we launched recently was a QEMU environment for the MIP64 architecture.
So Target isn't on
What was that?
there. Target isn't on
Target is what?
there. Not on there.
Target isn't on there. Like I said, I think.
You don't have commercial and enterprise on that chart. They're sort of,
Well,
noticeable markets.
no, so okay, a lot of the back-end systems are on Target's data centers, actually any retailers, are between Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Ubuntu.
Yeah. But,
And the,
but you said yourself there's back end in every store. And to that, that's at least as big as the digital home.
yes, absolutely true, absolutely true. Now, as Purple grows, the hope is that companies like Cavium and Broadcom, in other words, I'm talking about the NetLogic parts of Broadcom, as they're supplying some of the networking components, they realize that, and all of these are virtualized, even today, that they can help build in some of the software on these two areas to help alleviate some of the separation requirements. So you can still have a unit piece of hardware, but you have now virtualized two domains, virtualized architectures so that POS systems and HVAC systems aren't sitting on exactly the same network. It's not something that we keep at the forefront of when we're doing this, but it's something that has come into highlight actually very recently in one of our group discussions. We have a workflow, I'll let you read through it. It's like any consortium. We pull from upstream, contribute right back. These are the groups that we're forming. We've about 2 out of 7 or 8. We're taking a slightly different approach when it comes to hardware. I don't believe a software-based consortium should exist on its own. So we're enabling hardware and low-cost hardware. My goal is, if you want to dabble in OpenWRT, you want to be a part of the Purple community, you think you have skills, fine. This board is now available. It's a $40 Raspberry Pi on steroids-like board that will allow you to boot quite a bit of the code that Purple is creating, and it's available now. Actually, it's probably sold out now, but the first 1,000 we're giving away for free. But it's $40, 40 or 50, I don't remember. So we're enabling a considerable amount of hardware so that people can grab software and hardware very quickly and start contributing back. There's an academic individual class of membership inside Purple, which is free. My goal is, yes, I charge corporate members. I got to keep the lights on. But if you're an individual member, hacker, somebody who's really interested in this space, and I'll tell you how you can get involved instantly. I've spoken about all of this stuff. We spoke about virtualization. I'll let you go through the slides. My contact information will be there. Blah, blah. Some resources for you guys to look at. Some really, really cool stuff. My email address at the bottom. You just won't be able to copy paste it, but it's there.
Huh? What?
Right down at the bottom.
That's the protective way of writing it.
It's my little way of being off the grid.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.